I'm not joking there.
All right. Well, we're rolling now.
Yeah, righto. Cool.
You see?
This isn't live, is it?
No, it's not live.
Thank
But we're on now. So I'm here with Lenna.
How we going?
So Lenna and we met at a different gym previously, and we sort of kept in touch because I used to work in the Gong from, I think it was around 2014 to 2019. I was in the Gong, and that was when I was running Mercedes-Benz in Wollongong, and yeah, and then after I left the Gong, like I obviously couldn't train in the Gong anymore, but how Lenna and I reconnected pretty more recently was through Southern Fighting Championship. And I reached out to her because I was like, I saw SFC had a card coming up. And then, I'm in this sort of weird situation in life at the moment where I'm sort of transitioning what I'm doing. Like, to be honest, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know that feeling very well.
So, and look, I don't think there's anything wrong in admitting that, because I think a lot of people will go through this in life. And, I was fortunate that, I had 17 years where I was working in one particular industry, and that was great. But, I came to this point where I was like, yeah, look, I could probably still stay in that industry and keep working in that industry, but is that really what I want to do? And so I had this opportunity to have a bit of a break. I ran in the federal election in May, and that was a fucking crazy experience.
Seen that.
Never in my life have I had more, people want to judge who I am based on what they think I believe in and all that sort of shit versus actually wanting to have a conversation with me. Mm-hmm. And then, after that, then it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I was pretty fortunate because, my wife managed to get a part-time job locally. So I was like, why don't you try being a stay-at-home dad for once? And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. So I have a newfound appreciation for how hard it is, with kids to do everything that, my wife used to do, and then, have me come home grumpy as shit, wanting to eat and all that sort of stuff.
I think I'm having that at home at the moment too.
You know that feeling.
I know that feeling well as well.
So let's talk a little bit about Southern Fighting Championship first, because that's relatively new, right?
So it only first event kicked off in March this year. And
so you started it with a business partner as well?
Yep. So we had the idea. So I moved gyms after the lockdown. Just needed something fresh. Things kind of separated with the lockdown. Places were shutting down and everyone was kind of moving on, and that there was history there, but going forward there wasn't going to be a future where I was. So I was looking at other options. And I actually moved in with Anthony Redwood from the Grange. Yep. So he was from Smeaton Grange, and I seen that he married a local lady and was moving down here.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's all right. It always happens, especially on podcasts. If a lot of people haven't done podcasts before, it's like, fuck, I forgot my phone.
Yeah, and mine goes off all the time too. There's like 108 messages at the moment. So I seen he was down here, and I hit him up straight away and just said, are you starting in Wollongong? Because if you are, then I'm coming to train, because I used to go up and train and spar some of his girls in Sydney. So that Ebony Bridges. Yep, when she was an amateur, just when she started going pro actually. So I was really excited to get like a legit good boxing coach down here. One that's coached Australia, like for the Australian teams, and has represented Australia and has a very good reputation on that side of it. Because my previous experience, obviously from Thailand, was Muay Thai. Yep. And I was kind of getting old now. I don't want to do too many head kicks anymore. I don't want to get elbowed either.
Eat shins and get cut open.
Yeah, no, I'm not into getting elbowed anymore. So I'd rather stick to the technical side of boxing.
Yep.
So, I ended up moving in with him, and it was good because when I came in to speak to him about it, basically I just said that I wanted to learn. So not just on the boxing side, but on the event side. So, and it was good because we opened up that conversation, and there was a group of us, and then me and a few of the girls went and did our promoter's license and went from there. So it just gave us, an insight to what happens and what you need to do, which is a shitload actually. There's a lot that I didn't realise that you need to do behind the scenes. But yeah, it's been good. So third event, we got 3 more this year.
Yep. So the license for promoting an event, is that the same thing? Like you go through CSA and you have to do you tick a different box. So for people that don't know, in fight sports in New South Wales anyway, we have the Combat Sports Authority, which basically regulates, it's our, I guess, industry body, so to speak. And so if you're an athlete that's competing, you register so that you get your little blue book, which is like your health records. You need to take bloods every 6 months, get a medical done, just to make sure that you're fit to actually fight. And I think, for promoters, you guys got to do a different separate.
Yeah, so it's still through CSA, and it's a similar system.
Yep.
So you go through all the original channels, and then you register as a promoter or a matchmaker or a referee or something like that, rather than going to combatant registration.
Yep.
It's pretty full on. So you got to go through like a New South Wales police check, and that it's pretty thorough.
Make sure you're not bankrupt.
Yeah.
Criminal, money laundering.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it's a bad thing, because I'd say in the past there would have been a lot of dodgy promotion going on.
Massive.
Like overseas, it's terrible over there how it's done.
Yeah.
So I reckon that it's cut a lot of that out, and having that procedure in there and having those systems, makes it pretty legit, which is good. Gives it a good standard as well. But yeah, it was great. Even now, when you go to run an event, you don't just put your application through to CSA. You've got to also go straight to the police and give it to them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you notify them so that they know. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
we
like
need to
28 days out, you've got to let them know you're having an event. You've got to let them know about the licensing, if there's going to be alcohol there, and then there's all these timelines that you've got to meet.
Yep.
Like with the final fight card release, and then they check, like the cops will actually check who you've got on to make sure that they're happy with it.
Yep. So one of the fighters that you had on your card, Anthony O'Manion, he was the Irish guy who fought against Zeke.
Yep.
I was having a bit of a conversation with him because obviously he lived in Ireland for the majority of his life, and I think for the 2 years, so up until 2019, from 2019 he moved to New Zealand or something, and then he was in New Zealand for a couple of years, and then he's come across to Sydney. But we were talking about what the differences in boxing was like between those three countries.
Yeah, style-wise.
Style-wise, and like how are the events, and like they all have a very different feel. And like his comment was that, the events in Australia, so especially, Southern Fighting Championship, was like so professionally well run. Yep. It was like, in Ireland, it's like when it comes to amateur boxing, it's kind
Street
of
fighter.
Yeah, it's like doing a development day with a bit more of a crowd.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas yours was a professional show. Like it had all the elements of you. I know there was pro fights on the card, but it was all the elements that were there that gave the Amis the same sort of feel as if they were doing pro fights.
Yeah.
And I think that there's merit in that, because obviously it then gives the amateurs that sort of exposure to what that pressure and what does that feeling feel like.
Yeah.
Versus we all know, like there's plenty of guys who spar really well in the gym, but then when the lights are turned on, it's a totally different feel. And
there's the opposite too.
Yeah.
You've got some that spar terribly, and then it comes to fight day and they switch on.
Yeah, absolutely. It works. It cuts both ways. But So he made an interesting comment to me. He was like, like in Ireland, it was really like the amateur boxing was really just about amateur boxing. Like it was just trying to develop amateurs, and it was sort of like that feeling was kind of like a development day, which was a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Versus in Australia, and I think it's not easy to run these shows either, right? And so the fact that you guys put so much effort in, and you sort of have to put that effort in, because otherwise there's no real if there's no production behind it, there's not much incentive for people to tune in or show up and watch, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's also a big difference, I think, between the two bodies here. So whether it's like the league or the ABA. So I think that makes a difference as well.
Yep.
Like there's slight difference in the rules.
Yep.
And you can't usually do both. They don't allow you to do both.
Really?
No.
Okay.
So if you're going to do the pathways like for Commonwealth and Olympics and things like that, and you've done a league show, they won't let you on.
Really?
No.
Oh, so did that. Yeah. See,
Yeah,
this is one of the things
politics in sports. It's bullshit.
Exactly. That's one of the things about boxing, because there's so many different organizations.
Yeah.
And so that's why they always have, like, in the massive fights, it's like these unification bouts. I think there's some positive in the sense that it does allow fighters to get really big if they can unify a whole bunch of different titles. But I think also the negative is that there's a lot of other fighters who they might have won all these titles but don't get as well known as a result of it, versus, everybody can probably rattle off a few of the UFC champions and a few of the MMA champions, because there's not as many competing leagues.
Yeah.
Right. And most people, typically they're only either going to follow the UFC. There might be a few people that support, like Bellator and some of these other events, PFL, One Championship. Like, to me, I only really follow two leagues. I follow UFC and I'll follow One Championship.
Yeah, same.
To me, they're like, obviously One Championship's closer to home. You know, it's in Southeast Asia, it's in Singapore. Well, the home is in Singapore, and it's really close. We have a lot of Aussie fighters that fight in that as well.
Yep.
And obviously we're, you know, having a lot of success in the UFC as well. So they're the two that I mainly follow. And I don't know if there's any other reason why. Like, Bellator does have great fighters, and, you know, a lot of the UFC fighters have gone over to Bellator, but I just don't really watch it.
Might not be run quite so smart, the business side of it, though.
Yeah.
Either. Like the UFC, the way they've marketed that over the years, and the business side of it is, you know, it's really well done.
Yeah. And I think they do. I think most fighters are getting onto the idea that, hey, you know, the purpose of getting into the UFC is to get your platform.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's what you do with that platform is then what's going to set you up for life.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So, you know, what made you interested in wanting to get into the events side of fighting and promotion?
I've actually always kind of been interested in it, but I just never had the opportunity to do anything about it, or I didn't know how to approach it until I made the move. Yep. So I'm getting older as well. Yep. So I'm not going to be fighting too much anymore. He's trying to get me in this year. Yeah. But we'll see how that goes. So I need to look going forward, because I still want to stay in the industry, you know, to some capacity anyway. And I think that especially in Wollongong, I've got a good network here. I've been a trainer down here for nearly 20 years now. So, and I know, you know, all the gyms, and I know most of the coaches, and I know most of the athletes and things like that. So I've got like a good foundation for like pushing something like that. And where the thing with SFC is to build a platform for local fighters, so that they can display, you know, their talents and fight in home crowds, not just having to go Sydney or interstate and things like that. And that's another reason why we're doing all the codes rather than just doing one code and allowing it to mix up. We've had good response from that, because each card we try to stack it with locals. I think nearly every fight out of the last one, there was 16, 17 fights on it. I think it was 16 fights on it. So out of those 16 fights, I'm pretty sure we had 15 local or South Coast, like Wollongong South Coast.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. So back when I competed, some of the first competition I ever did was actually at PCYC at, is it Redcliffe Street, Windang, somewhere around there. So just over the bridge, there's a little PCYC.
Yeah, the Illawarra one.
The Illawarra one.
Yeah, that was Reddle.
Reddle
Parade.
Reddle Parade, that's the one. That was actually the first ever competition I did, and that was a pancration comp. So I think at the time there wasn't really a lot of mixed martial arts competition back when I first jumped into it, and so that was like a pancration comp run through PCYC. So it was like I don't know whether they did it as like an exhibition or whatever it was, but that's the first time that I competed, and that's where it was. And one of the guys that I competed with there, like there wasn't really, so just thinking about, you know, mixed martial arts promotion. So back then, the only other place that seemed to be running cage fights was Wollongong. Like there wasn't really anywhere else. Like,
Wollongong was. Joe was running some. Yeah.
And so I thought that was an interesting point to raise, because I think, you know, the Illawarra's got a pretty good history in terms of combat sports. The second thing that that sort of resonated for me is, the getting older part, right? So, you know, we got to look for other ways to try and still be in the industry and enjoy what we do. Yeah. And that's, you know, I guess why I started when I reached out to you, I was like, oh, hey, you got anybody commentating? That's what I'm looking to get into, because I'm thinking about, okay, how can I continue a career in this? And, you know, what are the things that I'm good at? Well, I'm good at doing this, talking, talking shit. So
kind of works well for commentating.
Yeah, it works great for commentating. So, you know, so that's why I was like, okay, you know, this is it. And one of the things I love about commentating is that, you know, not only do I have one of the best seats in the house, like I'm either ringside or I'm in a position where I can see everything that's happening, is that I get to sort of play devil's advocate. You know, I don't have to think about it from a perspective where I'm in one fighter's corner or the other fighter's corner. I can play it from both fighters' corners and say, okay, what would I be saying if I was in the blue corner or the red corner, and what are some of the adjustments? And so it's sort of like, you know, I get a bit of an opportunity to work on my own coaching skills from that perspective. And then the thing that I'd like to think about as a commentator, and I don't know whether this is right or wrong, but I always try and think of the fighters watching back their fights, so that, I want to try and make sure that my commentary offers them some insight to them, so that when they watch back their fight, they can go, oh, okay, I see what Johnny's talking about. I'm going to take that away in the gym, ask my coach about it, and
bit
work
of
on it.
analysis.
Yeah. So that's the way that I sort of approach commentary. I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but I think there's many different styles of commentator, but that's how.
I'm not sure if there is a right or wrong
Nah.
way to commentate.
Well, I think as you found, right? Like, is there a
Everyone
right or
just
wrong?
does their own.
Is there a right or wrong way to run a promotion?
Oh, there's definitely wrong ways to do it. We haven't figured that part out yet, and I don't think we will.
Yep.
I think we'll stick to the right way because
Yep.
so far it's been going really good. So we've got a K1. Actually, we've got boxing and K1 coming up in September, and then probably a jiu-jitsu with MMA October, and then another pro-am boxing for November.
Yeah, cool.
So finishing the year strong.
Yeah, that's good. So when it comes to obviously organising an event, and I guess, I want you to sort of take me through a little bit, because I think for people listening, I don't think people really appreciate how much work goes in behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realise, especially, so there's a few different perspectives, right? So a fighter's perspective is always like, okay, if somebody gets booked, they go, oh, fantastic, got booked. But then, they go through their fight camp, and then somewhere through their fight camp, they might get injured, or their opponent might get injured, and suddenly somebody's pulled out, and then it's like, oh, shit, what do you do now? And then it's always the promoter that's scrambling to try and find, a new fighter.
That was a nightmare, because it wasn't so much to injuries, but with the pandemic and obviously that flu, I think maybe 2 weeks out, we probably had 10 that we had to kind of rematch.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yep.
So submission for your final fight card with CSA has to be done 5 days before at 12 noon.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I sent the email like at 11:50 something. it was pushing it to and that was with a change. Like this is now the final after sending him 10 finals. So yeah, it was a tight push.
Yep.
And then we ended up having a couple of backups on there just in case it happened again.
Yep. And so, can you talk me through your own mentality in that space? Like, how did you feel like trying to rejig all of these fights?
Oh, stressful.
Yeah.
It's adrenaline though too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So me and Becca back and forth trying to figure it out to the last minute, and yeah, it was stressful. We had a lot of coaches that were helping, like good coaches that were helping.
Yep.
Obviously, Ant's got a heap of connections, so that's really useful. We also had Nudge had some pros on, so both of them are pretty well known. So it's good to have good coaches.
Yep.
That have got heaps of connections and heaps of industry experience as well, because they'll always step up and help.
Yep.
So in Wollongong, so we've got our promotion company running. So Steve Pasaris is also running a few with Black Diamond as well. Mm-hmm. And, we help them out, and they help us out too. Okay. So, like if his fighters pulling out and we've got anyone that he needs to rematch, I think his wife does it. So anyone that needs to be rematched, then we'll send him over, and he does that and reciprocates that.
That's actually really good.
Yep,
it's good. It's a good way to save a card.
Yep.
I think like Power Play in Melbourne recently, so they were meant to have a card, but they've now pushed back to October. Yeah. And it's just, it's never good for both the fighters, for the promotion, for everyone, right? When that has to happen, because we as the fans, we miss out. Yeah. Right? We as the supporters, we miss out. And at the same time, the fighters, for their experience, they miss out as well. Mm-hmm. Because the more that they can get in the tin now, and that's, so the MC of the night at your event was Rick Powell. I was having a bit of a chat with him, and he was commenting, one of the things that he loves is doing all these grassroots promotions, because that's where you see, what the spirit of the sport is about. Yeah. Right?
How good's Rick too?
He's great.
I know, gotta love him, hey. Yeah. He's a legend.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. Can we talk about your business, so Alternative Fitness Wollongong? Yep. Because you've obviously been running that for a very long time. And this might probably tie into, some of your training stories and things like that. But I guess, when did you first decide, hey, okay, I'm going to start doing this? Were you working at something else or doing something else when you first started?
I was a gymnast.
I see, you're a gymnast. Yeah. So was that something you did from young?
Yeah, and then I was a coach. I was a good gymnast. Yep. But I was probably a better coach than I was gymnast. Okay. So I started
which style?
coaching.
Because there's two styles, right? There's artistic and
rhythmic. Not the rhythmic one. The proper one where you do the cool tricks and shit. Fucking ribbons. Can you see me running around with ribbons?
I could see you belting somebody with a ribbon, tying them up.
Balls. No, the proper one. So I was doing that and the sports acrobatics, so like the holds where you throw the little kid around and catch them and things like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that stuff.
Yep.
And I was coaching that from quite young. I think I started coaching when I was 12, actually, like the recreation kids.
Yep.
And then I was judging as well. So I was quite a good judge too, actually. I was judging like state comps and stuff from 16 years old or something like that.
And
I was
was
a head judge at country one year at 16 years old.
Was that something that your parents just threw you into, or was something that you found?
Because I was a pain in the ass.
Yep.
My dad threw me in.
Yep.
To burn some energy. It's also long training time. So like once you get out of the rec and you get into squad, you're talking like 3 hours an afternoon.
Wow, 3 hours an afternoon.
Yeah, it can be 5-6 days a week. So you'll do a big block on a Saturday too.
And you never felt burnt out, like?
No. The kids burn out.
Oh, I think you get to a point, right? Like,
it would have been pretty hard to burn me out.
yeah.
Because then on my afternoon off, he'd make me do something else.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So okay, wow. Okay, so do I guess from the gymnastics side, did you have a specific apparatus that you really liked?
Yeah, probably beam. Beam was my thing.
Yep. So
And then from gym, I because we used to go down the snow heaps when we were kids, so I did probably 10 years of like seasons and going around, travelling around snowboarding and instructing in that as well.
wow.
Hence the progression into PT.
Okay. So it was gymnastics first, and then you went into coaching for gymnastics.
Yep.
And then the snowboarding through the seasons and things like that.
Yep.
Out of curiosity, what do you think are some of the biggest lessons that gymnastics taught you?
It teaches you a lot of discipline.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you're flipping around on your head, if you're not training properly, you're going to get hurt.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely teaches you discipline. You've got to show up too. You've got to show up for yourself.
Yep.
So I'd say that would be the biggest thing.
Yep. Just bring that mic up a little closer. Sorry. You can hear it sort of was cutting out a little bit, but yeah. So the discipline, I guess. But as a kid, right? I always think about this because when you're a kid, like, so when my parents used to take me to things, you never really argue. You just turn up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think when we get older, we get to this stage where it's like, I can get out of this, and that's when it's about discipline, right? Like, because that's the time when you can actually give up on things. But if you just keep showing up, then that's when you actually see the improvement over time, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever get to that stage where it's like, you didn't want to go, or?
Yeah, but see, the way our coach structured it was pretty smart. So when you didn't want to go anymore, the sports acrobatics was just taking off, which was really good for like older gymnasts.
Ah, okay.
You're a base now. It's a little bit more interactive. You're in a team. It's a bit sexier to watch too, a bit funner.
So, okay, sports acrobatics is, now forgive my ignorance here, is this like cheerleading? Like that style?
No, it's not fucking cheerleading.
I don't know, okay? I'm asking the question.
So it's like the skills from cheerleading,
Yep.
but heightened.
Okay.
Proper skills.
Yep.
So they're not just throwing a fancy bitch with the pom-poms around and then catching her. Like, it's.
But just think about that imagery, everybody. The fancy bitch with the pom-poms.
No, it's not that. It's kind of like the circus skills. So they're a higher end of those skills.
Okay, yeah.
So it's gym cross like circ skills.
Circ skills.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yep. And so from the gymnastics, then you went into that sports acrobatics.
Yep.
Did you enjoy both equally, or did you find?
No, I enjoyed acro heaps more for me.
More?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it was funner. Yeah.
And was it just because of the team environment, or?
No, I think I liked the skills. I think I liked the whole thing was funner actually.
Yeah.
And it was newer as well, so you could go. It was less serious, and you could get into national squads and stuff quite easy without having to train your guts out 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So I was older and I was working and things like that. I actually went back. I had 10 years off and then went back when I was 27.
Really?
Yeah. Someone broke their elbow and they needed a fill-in, so I went back and went to nationals. It was
No
pretty
way.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah?
I think I was the oldest one on the team.
Did you look around and be like, oh, what am I doing here? But at the same time,
yeah,
it
with a
was
bunch
like,
of 16-year-olds. It was fun, but
Yeah.
I just went back and just filled in so that because
The team
the
could still
base
go.
the base had injured herself, and the young girl had been training the guts out, so it was more to like the
Help
coach
her.
rang me and said, "Can you do it? Because we need someone to step up here, because otherwise this kid's gonna she's working hard and she's not going to be able to go, and that's disheartening."
Yeah. That's really good of you, actually. So then, how did combat sports come into all this?
I was working as a PT originally. well, actually not originally. I started in a women's gym because I didn't have a mum.
Okay.
So, and I was a tomboy, so I figured that maybe getting in with women, considering 80% of your market's going to be women, was a good idea.
Yep.
To learn how to deal with them and speak to them and things like that. And then I went to Fitness First. So when I was at Fitness First, I started with Brett Harriet.
Brett Harriet.
Oh no, it was Clem Pitt. He was my first one. I was doing boxing with Clem, the old security guard.
Oh, okay.
That everyone hates. I reckon he's a legend, but no one can be a security guard in Wollongong and deal with drunk dickheads and like not be an arsehole sometimes. All jokes aside, don't judge him for that. But it was with him and then I started doing Muay Thai with Brett Harriet from Fit to Fight.
Okay.
And Brett's like a bit of a Wollongong martial arts icon, really. I've never heard anyone say a bad word about him and you know, he's the only person I know who shuts his gym down for a year and then opens up and he's got 100 people on the books.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that speaks a lot to character, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole situation over the last couple of years has just been a bit crazy for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
You know, especially when, you know, health and fitness should have been on the top priority for most people. And then we go and shut all the health and fitness places.
Oh, but even when the gym's open, he didn't open up again straight away. It was another 6 months.
Wow.
And he still opened up and it was like, boom, he was on.
Yep.
You know, good on him.
Yep.
I don't think anyone in Wollongong wouldn't have been happy for him.
Yeah, fair enough. Did you know? You mentioned your mum in that. Can we touch on that or?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
No,
that's all right. All good. Okay, so then, so how long were you training at Fit to Fight before you decided then you wanted to go over to Thailand and train over there as well?
A couple of years, I think. I actually went to Thailand because I did a stunt course. That was the first time I trained there.
What? Stunt course?
Yeah, I did a stunt course over there.
So you wanted to get into movies or something?
Yeah, that was my goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I went over there and did all this because I was jumping out of aeroplanes at the time and then I was snowboarding heaps.
Yeah.
So I was, and scuba diving and you have to tick. I think
all the
there's
boxes
five.
for stunt course.
There's five categories you got to tick. You got to tick 4.
Yeah.
So the only one I didn't want to do was animals. I didn't want to ride a horse, but I ticked all the other ones already. So
hang on a second. Let's go back a step. So obviously from the gymnastics side, you could do a lot of the falls and jumps and things like that. Okay.
So there's your body mekanics.
Yep. So then what was obviously snowboarding would be something.
Yeah, so that kind of goes into body mechanics too. Then there's
skydiving.
Yep, so that's air.
Yep.
Then there's water, so I can wakeboard quite well. I can surf and I had a scuba ticket.
Yep, okay.
Then there's engine. So to be honest, I'm a shit driver, hey. I'm terrible. And when I was a kid, I had a motorbike. I was shit on that too. But after being in Thailand, like you learn pretty quickly.
You learn pretty quickly, yeah.
And you learn pretty quickly with chaos over there. So I go right on a bike now.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was that would have been your fall. So, okay. Talk me through So you went to Thailand originally for your stunt course.
Yep.
And then how long did you end up staying in Thailand that first time?
About 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Yeah, so we did. We trained at a gym over there for part of the stunt course for the martial arts component, and then I stayed a couple of weeks extra.
Okay. And how was that experience? Like, I guess relative to training in Australia, like what was the differences for you?
I think everything's different over there. Hey. Massive cultural thing. These days in Thailand, I think it's over commercialised though too.
Yeah.
So this was how long ago? This is a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Well over 10 years ago. I don't even know how long ago it was. I'd have to really think about that. But the gyms back then, when you went over there, it was more fighters that were going there to train, not so much. You'd get a tourist coming in every now and then just so they could do a session and get a photo. But it wasn't like tourists rocking up going, I want to fight, and they train for a month and then stick them in and have a laugh at them pretty much. It wasn't like it is now. But the lady that ran it, she was an Australian lady, Anita.
Oh.
I used to call her mum. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I stayed in really good contact with her, so I used to go back and forth after that.
Yep.
And stay with her. She's the one that got me the job over there.
Oh, wow. So, okay. So then what job did she get you over there?
I was one of the trainer managers and managing the gym in a gym over there.
Okay.
Yeah, Maximum.
And then, talk me through that experience, because I guess, what was going on in your life over here, and then was like, okay, you got this opportunity to go over there and do it. Like, I guess, was it just a no-brainer, or was it like...
it was. I was in a relationship at the time, and we had actually been speaking about what your dream job was, and we'd just got back from Thailand, so he had met Anita.
Yeah.
And I said that it would be doing what she does. And it was probably 2 weeks after that I got the job offer.
Oh, wow.
So it was a no-brainer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So packed your bags, off you went.
Pretty much, I packed 2 bags. I was out of here like a month later, I think.
And then how long were you there for at that time?
Nearly 2 years. So I came back a couple of times. Like I walked out of the stadium after a fight one night and got hit by a motorbike.
Oh, shit.
That was mad. Took the bottom of my foot off and then went training and got staph from that.
Oh.
Yeah, so in Thailand when you get staph, you go over there and they're like, oh, we're going to cut off your toe. And I thought, nah, fuck that. You ain't cutting off my toe over here. I'm going home, and go put under anaesthetic and you wake up and your opposite arm's missing or something. So I came home to get that treated.
Yeah.
But I came back and forth because I still had my business here as well. I was trying to, I had someone running it and I was trying to keep so that when I did come home, I had something to fall back. Yeah, so I had something to fall back on. But yeah, so I went back and forth for a couple of years.
Yeah. And then, because you fought over in Thailand as well, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But it was more working though than fighting.
Okay, so majority of it was obviously managing the gym and doing this thing.
Yeah, and I trained heaps. I did train heaps.
Yeah.
But it was when you're a foreigner over there, they expect a lot.
Yeah.
Because obviously Thais are lazy. But that's so, culturally everything's laid
back.
And yeah. So when they employ you and they're paying you more, they expect more, which is fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then, so the first fight that you ever did, was that here or was that overseas?
No, it was overseas.
Overseas. And then what made you want to actually jump in the ring and throw some fists and some knees and some elbows at another person?
They did.
They did? Oh, they just said, oh, Lenna, you should
No, they push you over there to do it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I actually probably wouldn't have been keen on it. I didn't want to go elbowing little girls in the head. Yeah, I wasn't really into that. They would push you and push you and push you.
They just slowly bring you into the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't really get a choice when you're there. Like I was there by that stage probably 6 months with my coach. I still talk to my coach now actually. And yeah, no, they pressure it because they want to make money off it too.
Yeah, okay. It's gambling.
100%. They bet.
Yep.
Like either for you or against you,
Yeah.
and then take a cut of the winnings.
And the side bets, the side pots that happen as well.
And the pay over there was good. I got like $600 from my first fight.
Yep.
So and that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Do you remember the feelings? When you were walking out there for your first fight, like, what do you remember how you felt?
Oh yes, anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, massive anxiety.
Yeah. And
I don't think that goes. I think people just get better at
dealing with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I always say it's like, and this is something that I didn't necessarily learn through. I did learn it through competition, but not for fighting competition. Like for martial arts performance as well as doing lots of martial arts performing. The same, you get the same feeling whether it's nerves or excitement, right? People always say, "Oh, I have this, butterflies in my stomach," whether it's nerves or whether you view it as nervousness, anxiety, or you view it as excitement, it's actually the same feeling. So
yeah, I suppose they're kind of the same thing though, aren't they?
That's the thing. They are, right? People just don't realise that they're actually the same thing. So I used to always then use that. And I think, for me, that helps me in competition because you actually take that energy and it's like, yeah, we're going to go. You fire yourself up. For some people, it can be overwhelming the opposite way and they start to shell up a little bit and they go, oh.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, okay, cool. And so how many times did you end up fighting over there then? Over your course of your time there?
2 and then 1 pulled out.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's never fun.
No, it was on the night too.
Oh, even worse.
I think it's pretty common over there, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised over there sometimes if the promoters get it out there and get your photo out there and they haven't even got you a match.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Then you got a foreigner and big fight tonight.
That's right.
And then
so
that goes around on the truck. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And then what the people? So I guess for people that don't
tickets.
And for people that don't understand the culture, I guess there's live betting in Thailand. So when you go
and
to
it's dodgy as so dodgy.
So a lot of the times, the first round of many Thai fights don't typically see a lot happening because they want it to get to the later rounds so that they can obviously collect more money from bets. And then, usually in the second and thirds is when you start to see more things happen. And it's just a slight cultural thing, I guess. And
yeah, it's the style though too. Like boxing amateur here, you got 3 2-minute rounds.
Yep.
Over there, amateur first fight, you're doing 5 3-minute rounds. So it's not a sprint.
Yep.
It's a little bit more of an endurance race. You got to pick your shots. The style's quite relaxed.
Yep.
They're very still and they kind of wait.
Yep.
There's not much moving around. They're very, very. It's hard, aggressive, like a lot of single shots and things like that.
Yep.
So it's not really the same.
Yeah.
And even Muay Thai here, when you watch it, isn't the same as
It's
over
different.
there. Yeah, completely different.
Yep.
I mean, it's not even supposed to be scored the same as what it is here half the time. They're not supposed to score punches.
Yep.
So Muay Thai, art of 8 limbs,
Yeah.
is what it means. But you only get scored for knees, elbows and kicks. You don't actually score points for punching.
Yep.
Whereas here, sometimes I question whether or not that's actually how it's done.
Yeah. Look,
I've watched a few and have just been blown away by the decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think that's common in most in all the combat disciplines. When sometimes when things go to a close decision, everybody's like, "Oh, it's a robbery. It's a robbery." But like I always, and there was a recent one. I think on one championship fight card, it was Kuzman versus Muang Thai. That was a split decision victory to Muang Thai. But when I watched that fight, I was like, oh, I don't think he won. And then you go back and watch it, and you got to watch it a few times, and it's like, oh, depends how you're scoring it. My first thought was, one championship, sometimes they do score the fight in its entirety. And I was like, okay, Muang Thai definitely won the third. Maybe they gave it to him because of that. And then I went back and checked. Oh, no, it was meant to be scored by round. And then so then it was like, okay, now you got to actually look at, okay, what was landing? If you don't count the punches, okay, well, then you got to count the kicks. And from that perspective, I can see how they could score it that way as well.
Yeah. So I've learnt a lot about that since being here as well, because they're scoring fight IQ now. So I've come in sometimes with a video or questions, and I've gone like to Anth. I've said, like, no way did that person win. That's bullshit. And he's like, no, and then end up in an argument. Think I know better than him, which I don't. And he'll break it down and explain it to you. And when it comes down to it, sometimes it's not the fact that you've done more damage or you've landed more shots. It's the fact that the other person's been a bit smarter.
Okay.
So if you're doing the same shit over and over again, and that person picks up on it and they start to change what they're doing and change their tactic and things like that, and they've got different approaches, then that makes, the fight IQ side comes into play as well. And really? I reckon it's good, yeah.
I didn't know that they scored fight IQ.
Well, I thought Amina won one of her fights I watched in Goldie for sure. I was like, she got robbed.
Yeah.
And then when I came back and he went through it with me, it made more sense because I could see what was going on.
Yeah, the opponent made the adjustments.
Yeah, just things like that, like was changing her angles, or could see that she was doing this and would adjust to it, and was changing up her attacks as well and what she was doing and her defence, and that was just a little bit more on the game plan side.
Yep.
So it might have been close.
Yep.
And then that was the winning factor.
Yeah, wow. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about that. With like normally they always score, it's going to be damage, it's going to be ring control or cage control.
But if it's close,
yeah.
Like, what are they going to make the final decision of? If someone's fighting smarter, I suppose they get it, don't they?
This is where all the fans are like, well, they're doing this. Which way is the wind blowing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what made you decide to come back to Australia then at the end of it?
The gym over there, all the gyms over there have got dodgy shit going on. So I think, it got a bit dodgy.
When you say dodgy shit, like, any examples? It doesn't have to be relative to your gym.
Most of the gyms over there, they're not run by Thais. They're run by foreigners. Yeah. And sometimes foreigners overseas aren't good.
Okay.
What goes on in Thailand, that's predominantly foreign.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can think of a few things.
Yeah, plenty of things. Yeah.
There's a lot of dodgy industry over there.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that's stuff you want to be involved in.
Yeah. Okay. So then it was like, okay, I've seen enough now.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
So then when you came home, like how was your business doing? Was it still okay, or had dropped a little bit?
Yeah, as good as you can be expected when you've moved overseas for 2 years. But it didn't take long to get back. I mean, I've still got clients that I've had for probably some of them over 15 years now. That were training with someone else while I was away and came back.
Yep.
So I can't complain.
Yep. And then I guess throughout your journey in terms of helping people reach their fitness goals and things like that, has there been any lessons that have let me go back one step. Did you have any notable failures when you first started trying to train people?
Oh, shitloads. I have them now.
And, I guess, are there any stories that you could share? It's like, what was the failure relative to? Like, did you just set the program wrong, or like what were the things that I guess?
I think more your failure the way you take the failure comes down to you can give people tools, but it's whether or not they open the toolbox and use it. So sometimes they might not succeed in their goal, which you take as your failure, when realistically it comes down to whether or not they're doing.
They actually did what they're supposed to do.
Are they taking the advice and running with what you've told them to do? But it's hard to not have some ownership in that if they are your client as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess...
it's hard not to feel the failure if that's what they feel too.
True. And I think that's the hardest thing for any trainer, right? Is because you can have them in the gym and doing all the exercises that you want them to do, but if then they go home and eat like shit, it's never going to work, right?
No, definitely not.
Do you find... And I guess, the reason why I'm curious about this is because my wife and I, we're like total opposites. So for her, a lot of her fitness is relative to what she eats and how she eats. And so for her, it's probably like 80% diet and 20% exercise. Whereas for me, I feel like I'm the opposite. I'm like 80%, exercise and 20% diet. Like I could eat fucking whatever and I'll still be okay. I might feel a bit shit, like energy-wise, but I'll be okay, like weight-wise and strength-wise and things like that. Have you found that changes depending on your client? Like, have you got...
big time, yeah. Massively. Yeah, there's definitely no set way for everyone.
Yep.
It's always going... And that you got to probably find that with them as well.
Yep. And so, so that you got a bit of a process there where you have to try and understand, like, learn a bit about them and what their lifestyle's like and all these sort of factors.
I wouldn't say that there's like a systematic process.
Yep.
But there's just, like it's a more of a rapport process, I suppose, than anything technical, because it's always going to be different as well. Everyone's road's different.
Yep. Have you ever had to say to a client, look, I can't train you?
Oh, heaps times.
Yeah?
Yeah, heaps times.
How did they take it?
Generally not too bad. Like sometimes, especially when you start out, you try to make everyone happy.
Yep.
And then you become someone that you're not really, and eventually that shit's going to come out. Like your true personality is going to come out, and then it's not going to work.
Yep.
So now if I don't think it's going to work, I'd just tell them straight up that I just don't think that, long term, if you're not mingling with your coach well, you're not going to get the results anyway.
Yep.
So, and I'll give them options of people I think might be better suited, rather than I'm just not going to train you because I'm being a bitch.
Yeah. No,
it's just if you don't click, then you don't click.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to do it. It's interesting. When you mentioned, the real you comes out, so to speak. That
I don't give a shit now. Now I just let it go from the start.
Yeah, right. Like it's about.
But when I was 20, I used to try and please everyone.
Yeah, well, like I find that exact same thing, right? Like, it always puts you in two minds, because I guess for me, because I'm trying to like build some like the podcast up and the YouTube stuff up for my film studies and things like that. I have friends that'll tell me, you should do videos on this and you should do videos on that. And it's like, it doesn't really interest me. Like at least if I'm going to be fucking nowhere, at least I'll be nowhere doing the things that I enjoy.
Yeah. It's true.
Which is, I don't know whether that's the right or wrong attitude to have, because they're like, but this will actually get you somewhere.
Better than being somewhere and being miserable.
Yeah, true. And so, but I think also sometimes, like, even me, like, doing the podcast, like, sometimes I get into this rhythm where, like, I do so many in a row that sometimes you lose track of, why did you start doing this in the first place? And I was saying to you before, Lenna, like, I sometimes I've got to take that step back and think about, why did I start this project? And, part of it was to obviously allow people to share, who they are at this present moment, right? Because, you've got kids and I've got kids, and, one day they might want to listen back to it.
They
might not. And hey, that's okay as well, right? Like if my kids were like, nah, I never want to listen to Dad speak, because like my kids might have the opposite feeling about the podcast, because they might look at it and go, oh, Daddy was always going out to go and do podcasts rather than spending time with us. Like that, maybe that could be something that they say. I don't know. They might turn around and say, oh, Daddy was always going out to train at night time, so, we don't like training as a result of it. Like, I hope that's not the case. And, I try my best to explain to them, the reasons why I do the things that I do. And I also tell them that, one day they're going to find things that they really enjoy and things that they really love as well. Can we talk a bit about motherhood, or you want to avoid motherhood?
What about it do you want to know?
I guess, for you, when you became a mother, like, I guess, were there, what were some of the changes in you? Did you find that you changed as a person?
Yeah, I probably chilled out a bit more, to be honest. I probably had to.
Hey, okay, so for people that don't know, Lenna's pretty intense, right? So,
Yeah.
So if this is the chilled out Lenna,
Yeah, so I was getting in trouble because I was jumping and I was pregnant, so I was skydiving still. So he made me stop jumping, and then a week later he buys me a dirt bike, and we go motorbike riding. How dumb is that? And I'm shit with motors. Way more dangerous.
Yeah.
Just because you're comfortable on a motorbike
Doesn't mean that you are. Yeah.
Or just you're comfortable on a motorbike, so you feel that you're more comfortable with me on one, which
Versus
wasn't. Yeah, silly.
Yeah.
Heaps less people die skydiving than they do on motorbikes.
So yeah, like I guess that the emotion of when you give birth to a child, right? Like, do you remember how you felt? I guess when my wife and I we talk about our first child. My wife was like, all I remember is, I guess, pain.
So I don't think childbirth's that bad.
Yeah.
But pregnancy's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the experience in your first trimester, second trimester, third?
The whole lot was shit. Yeah.
Did you have morning sickness the whole time?
The whole time.
The whole time.
Yeah, I was on a drip through both pregnancies a few times for being dehydrated. Yeah, it was fucking horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sick.
And I could eat. I wasn't one of those people that couldn't eat. I could eat, which probably made it worse because then I was just being sick with eating.
Yeah.
Rather than just being sick with fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was gross.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So and then like I guess so when you say you chilled out, it just meant that you wanted to take things a little bit easier, or did it just mean
more that I
things
had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, not wanted to, had to.
Yeah. And then I guess the other thing that I always like to ask about when I do these podcasts is because nobody ever gives you a handbook when you become a parent as to how to be a good parent or anything like that. Are there things that you've learned along the way that I guess resonate for you in terms of how you want to be a mum? And
yeah, I had a good role model there. My dad was really good, so I think I tried to use his book a little bit.
Yeah, and what was his book like? I guess what are the rules in the book?
Don't lie.
Yep.
Don't lie. Don't lie about lying.
Hey, that's not a bad one.
Pretty much. Don't lie, don't steal.
Yeah.
When I got older, just tell me, where you are, who you're with, and when you're going to be home.
Yeah. Were you a bit of
a rat bag as a kid? You figure out, I suppose. Yeah, I was a major rat bag. I was a pain in the ass. And I'm feeling that now because my first one's an angel, but my second one's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I think that's just the thing with seconds.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying that.
Yeah, they're opposite.
Yeah, well, if you had your first one and they were a pain in the ass, I'm not sure if you'd go again.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's probably the case. So I think that's the way to make people go again is you get an angel for your first one.
Yeah, 100%.
And then you go, oh yeah, that was easy. Let's go again.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness, what have we done? Yeah. Okay. What else should we talk about? So we talked about parenthood. I guess. Okay. So let's just go back to Southern Championship for a little bit more. So we're planning another 3 shows towards the end of this year. So what was the idea behind trying to cover all codes?
Well, there's no one down here covering all codes.
Okay.
So there's a fair few boxing promotions going on in Wollongong. One MMA, but they're not on very often.
Yep.
No K1. There's a couple of Muay Thai shows that come down, but no K1.
Yep.
And we're not doing Muay Thai, we're doing K1.
Yep.
So yeah, covering all codes there was a market there for it, but also the gym that I'm at, we have people in all codes.
Okay.
As well. So there was genuine interest.
Yep. So at this gym at Grange, so it's not just a boxing gym, is it?
No. So the owner of Grange, who little did people know, has actually had more kickboxing fights than he has boxing fights.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's had like 50 plus kickboxing fights.
Okay.
Yeah, just no one knows.
Yep.
And then he's had 90 or 100 fights in total. So quite a few boxing fights. He represented Australia, not just as a coach, but as an athlete as well.
Yep.
And he's had MMA fights.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's done a bit of all codes himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great, like learning.
Yeah.
Learning basis for it.
Yeah, and it's great for you to be able to draw from that experience as well.
Definitely.
To be able to pull from somebody who's been a competitor, who is a coach, and has also has Andrew done his own promotions as well?
He's not really into doing the promotions. Okay. He wants to be coaching people on them.
Yep.
But he will help though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Like it's funny how, people find what they sort of enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I do enjoy coaching, but I feel like it's just one of those things that I look at what some of the coaches put in, and I know that for me at the moment, with where my kids are at and all that sort of stuff, like I know that I would become obsessed.
Yeah.
And then that would definitely take away from my kids, and which is a reason why I don't really want to go heavily into coaching at the moment. Instead, like go down this commentary pathway and do these other things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because they're a little bit less time intense.
Yeah, you can't really coach unless you are obsessed, but not well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm there's a part of me that's actually scared to go and open that door. It'll be something that, when my kids get a bit older and they're like, Daddy, I don't need you, I've got my friends.
Yeah.
Then I'll be like, okay, well, that's when I'm gonna go and get
So
out.
the first show, he didn't put anyone on because he did help quite a bit. And then me and Beck was sweet after that. So it was
Okay.
And then Beck ran the second one, and then I ran the third one.
Yeah.
All right. We kind of we'll rotate it, because if she wants to fight, then I'll run the promotion, and then maybe they might get me on one and she'll run it. They're trying to. They're doing the Thailand tactic.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Pushing.
Yeah. All right.
Masters now.
Well, from my perspective, I look forward to hopefully commentating the future shows as well. I had a blast. There was a problem with the audio on the first show that I commentated, the most recent one.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you can hear me on the live stream or not, but that will hopefully be rectified for the next few shows. And I had a blast, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yep.
And we'll catch up with. Well, yeah. Hopefully, I'll get to sit down with Beck as well, and we can have a bit of a chat with her. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Beck will be she'll be a good one to talk to. She's like the brains.
Yeah. Okay. If people want to find you, obviously, how do they find you?
So Southern Fighting Championships on Instagram. There's a Facebook page as well.
Yep.
Or even Alternative Fitness. Either one's fine.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Pleasure.